And good morning, Hoosier Nation, and welcome to another victorious edition of Hoosier Morning After, a quick turnaround edition of Hoosier Morning After. Last night, just a mere, probably about 9 hours ago, your Indiana Hoosiers go on to defeat Minnesota on the road, 70-58. A game that IU very much needed, a string of games getting together where IU's feeling like they're finding stuff that's clicking and having fun, and it's fun to watch. IU's record right now is 19-13 on the season, 9-10 in the Big Ten, which is good to put them at 8th place, I believe, right now in the Big Ten, putting themselves in good position for that first week 1-game bye in the Big Ten tournament. Just a really great initial start from IU, going on a quick 8-0 run, but a very interesting foul on a 3-point shot for Minnesota kind of deflates that run. A mistake there from McKenzie, and they hit the free throw, putting it to 8-4. Some momentum from them, and along with turning the ball over in the first half 8 times, just kind of made things look a little lackadaisical for IU. But IU had, in that first half, 14 assists on 14 made baskets. Just an incredible stat to see for IU when we've gone so many different games where the assist to made basket line is so dramatically different. That would give IU the 5-point lead going into half, and then the second half, IU would clean up those turnovers for the most part, and only after taking 1 3-pointer in the first half would go on to finish the game 5 for 8, which is huge for IU on a percentage standpoint, obviously not a volume standpoint. Defense also ratcheted down for IU, getting into passing lanes, disrupting basically anything Minnesota was trying to do. Obviously, Minnesota helped themselves as well by not making those shots, but I think IU had a lot to do with that, factoring in things. It just feels like this team is enjoying themselves out there, despite what's going on in the fan base, despite what you're hearing and all the discontent. The players have seemed to able to turn that off. They have put their blinders on, and they're taking care of business. And it's great to see. It's a great reprieve compared to everything else that we've seen. And have finally seen that chemistry come out of this team that we've been struggling to see. Obviously, a lot of the parts on this team have great skills, and throughout the year, they just have not found that chemistry to play together. And right now, they're starting to find it. And I hate to say this phrase because it's probably number 2 on my least favorite phrases when it comes to Indiana. Number 1, you all know, is the good old over the hump line. But the other line that I'm going to say with this is that better late than never. And that stinks. I hate to say that. Better late than never. It's like, well, then why not sooner? If this was in the tank for IU all along, obviously we're playing the mid to lower end of the Big Ten right now. So that has something to do with it, but also is just some great play from IU and some great chemistry and just such a great mouthwash for IU fans and IU basketball, despite what some may think and be saying behind the scenes in our fandom. But at least on the court, we have good things to watch and see. So thank you for being with us. I'm your host, Chad Schwartzkopf. Here with me is Martha, the mop lady. Martha, your opening thoughts on last night's game.
Morning, Chad. It's been
morning, buddy.
How you been?
Pretty good.
Yeah. Any news since we've last met? I'm just kidding. I'm sure we'll get into that.
I don't know. Nothing's going on. Just very nice. Everyone's playing nice in the forums, right. and no petitions started. Nothing.
No petitions. Good. That'd be weird. Yeah. After what can best be labeled, I think, as a very odd, weird, interesting day, to end it with the win. I think, especially. Let's make three of our last games, and before that there was that 4-game skid that I think led to the point where we were all on the edge and, wondering where this thing was headed long term, even short term for that matter. But to play well here down the stretch, and obviously we're playing some opponents that, you could make the argument that they're also struggling, right? I think, for Indiana after the season that they've had, to be able to kind of put this little run together, that makes, I think, 17 wins now. There's something to be said about that. I think defensively last night, it was one of our better efforts. I think we held Minnesota to some really low percentages, some of their worst percentages of the year, and they had won 4 games at home. Minnesota had been playing well. They went to Purdue and played well. So while I say that these opponents aren't the greatest, they're teams that have been, Wisconsin started the season out very, very strong. Minnesota, has been playing very, very well and a very, very improved team. So it's just nice after everything that's happened to see kind of Indiana stick together when, you mentioned it, right? They look like they're having a little bit more fun playing together, when a lot of the conversation has been, this team's going to go in every opposite direction after the season that it can. They don't enjoy playing together, all the storylines, right? But that didn't look to be the case last night. I mean, you saw Ware after the game point to Anthony Walker, who had gotten hurt earlier in the game, and essentially kind of implied that one was for you. And it just looked to be a lot of cohesion, and maybe that monkey's off their back, maybe that weight's off their back, not knowing what the future looks like, not knowing what that's going to be, and whether we agree with it or not. I think we can talk about that until we're blue in the face. These are still young men that, they can play with quite the load on their shoulders sometimes. So you're kind of seeing them play a little more loose, a little more freely, and who knows what that means. You got a home game on Sunday, a chance to do make a little bit of noise in the Big Ten tournament. So it's really nice to see.
Yeah, it's such a better feeling when you have a quick turnaround to do a podcast and talk about things, to talk about a good one. And speaking of all that, all the behind the scenes stuff, everything that's been going on and everything, I don't plan to go deep into that on this show. Maybe that's something Martha and I will save for the end of the year when we do like a Hoosier Morning After the 2023-2024 season show. We can kind of dive into that a little bit more. But I don't want to dive deep into stuff that is out of our control and is beyond what we saw on the court last night. I want to celebrate the good and stay positive and stay that optimist podcaster that many of you know me as, and I try to be. And so this definitely is a game that helped me fill that tank up ever so slightly. If you go back and watch a few of the shows, that tank has been dwindling a little bit, but I think we have to start out first as we talk about different players to talk about Trey Galloway and just an amazing game that he continues to have. 13 points and an amazing 11 assists. He is 3 assists away from IU's single season record in the Big Ten. Zach Osterman also tweeted out last night, if I'm reading the media guide correctly, these are Hoosiers with at least 3 11 assist games in their careers now. And that is Isaiah Thomas, Jamal Meeks, Michael Lewis, and Trey Galloway. Not bad company to keep. And yeah, 100% Zach. And color me shocked, because if you rewind back to earlier shows this season, we struggled to see Trey Galloway as the ball handler. And he struggled himself to find this role, just because you could see that stress on him. And you could see he was almost like that new hire at a job that was just in over his head. But he settled into that role considerably. And I think a lot of that can be also contributed to having X back. And I'll kind of talk about that a little bit more and when we talk about X. But he just, it's great to see what he's able to create for IU and not feel like he has to be the scorer, but has found that he can be the distributor for this IU team. And equal as well, a few blemishes on this game. Obviously, turnovers were a tough thing, and he was contributed to that considerably. 5 turnovers for him, not great, but he made up for that to a degree with 5 steals. So just like to see what he is doing and his headspace is right now. I'm not sure how he found this, what he did. We can question it or guess towards it. I think, like I said, X has something to do with it, but great to find it now and great to see it out of him. Your thoughts on Trey's game?
I think you hit the nail on the head, and Trey's a guy that's been asked, right, wrong, or indifferent to do a lot of different things this season. And when things go wrong, he's usually one of the first guys we point at, and whether that's, a lack of 3-point shooting, a lack of solid perimeter play, but he's a guy that's been put into a situation, whether that's due to injury with X, or due to, Gabe maybe not progressing like we thought he would, or us not adding enough perimeter players in the portal. It's all fallen on Trey, right? When we struggle, we point to, our perimeter players are no good, or we can't shoot the 3-pointer. We can't make the 3-point shot. And Trey had a really good season from 3 last year, and what happened there? Why is his shot broken? All this different discourse on why Trey struggled, but he's just a guy that goes out and he's playing 35 plus minutes a game. He's asked to be a point guard, a position that I don't think is his natural position, and he just does it with he does what's asked of him, and he's slowly over time become pretty good at it, right? Are there games where his shot's off? Yes. Are there games where he's got more turnovers than he should have? Yes. But you know what you're going to get from Trey, and that's always 100%. And it's not like you have to pull that out of him. You don't have to pull effort out of Trey. You don't have to pull passion out of Trey. And he always shows that on the court. And that's something that I always appreciate about Trey. Plus, I think he's become a very good basketball player. I think his effort last night was true to form. It was what we've come to expect out of him. And after a day where it was a lot of confusion, and I think it's been an odd couple weeks in the fandom. I think the one thing you can always rely on is Trey Galloway going out there and playing. He kind of reminds you of why you fell in love with this program, with this team, because he goes out and plays it the right way. An Indiana kid that just does things. He plays with his heart on his sleeve, and he leaves it all out on the court. And I think that's all really you can ask for. So I'll always have an appreciation for Trey and kind of what he's meant to this program.
Yeah. And obviously in an ideal world now too, just being greedy, we'd get a little touch of that 40% 3-point shooting that we've seen in the past from him. But again, that's being greedy. If he just continues doing what he's doing for this last game and then into the Big Ten tournament, that would be great. That'd be a great thing to have. And I think a lot of it could have to do with he sees that the end of the season is getting close. So maybe that's a little bit of relief for him too, to feel like can play free and everything. I think it's just a combination of those things. And I think it's mentally for him that what he's been able to do to turn around his game. I think it started initially with Anthony Leal getting a little more play time, and that familiarity of having someone he could depend on right there with him, and no offense to him, but and not having Gabe Cupps out there, not having that freshman out there that he felt like he needed to make up for or coach or help out there on the court with him, but having some veterans around him, having some dependable guys that he feels comfortable with, I think has been one of the catalysts to get things going. And now X being back adds to that as well. The other great monster of a game that continues to turn around again at the end of the season. It's the theme of this show, I think, is Ware. Biggest kudos to him for a great job, obviously still playing hard in this game while he was in foul trouble. And some of those kudos, obviously, too, go to the coaching staff for sticking with him while he was in foul trouble. Now, part of that was a little forced that they needed to play him because Renew was equally in foul trouble. But we haven't seen this type of situation much this season. When he has been in foul trouble before, we've seen those long runs of having Sparks in there. When he's in foul trouble, and they did spell him for a little bit with Sparks, but it wasn't detrimental. When they've put Sparks in there before, they'll rely on Sparks to be in there for a little bit longer. When IU has the lead, and then the IU's lead kind of dwindles while he's in there, and while we have the second unit in, And then we're in a tough situation and we're playing kind of a battle. This time, Sparks was only in there for a little bit. I will say, very interesting, and you posted about it as to Martha. I do love Sparks's lack of self-awareness, but also lacks fear as well to try to go for the interesting scoop shot. Interesting to see a big guy like him go for that. Don't do that, buddy, but very interesting. But anyways, Ware just showed more of his versatility in this game, making the threes that he did, turnaround jumpers, just going at guys underneath. This was just a great game that I think he probably would have wished he had to get with those 14 scouts in the stands the other night. But obviously they are watching as well, just scoring on all levels. 26 points. 12 for 16, continues to be incredibly efficient when he does get those shots. 2 for 3 from 3, so that was impressive. 11 rebounds and 3 blocks. Your thoughts on the big monster underneath?
Yeah, there's been some doubters of the guy, right? And he just continues to put up stats. And when you take a step back and remember his story, I think it makes it equally impressive just that he's been able to bounce back after a rough freshman season when he came in with all these questions, and Oregon had essentially written him off. And obviously he had, all the raw tools to be, a very, very good, not only college basketball player, but potentially professional basketball player. It was just, can he put the stuff between his ears together and produce on the court? And I think a lot of the credit has to go to the coaching staff for putting him in a position to succeed, but also to him for, obviously he's gotten himself into a position where, he's in a good headspace and showing on the court. And that's tough to do, especially when you go through a season like Indiana's gone through, right? The Indiana fandom, I remember seeing him in an event last summer and he looked like he was shell shocked by all the IU fans that were there. And I just think it was a new beast for him. And it was like, man, this is different than Oregon, and it is. So, coming for a place where you were already struggling a little bit mentally to a place like Indiana, where it kind of eats, sleeps, and breathes basketball, I think a lot of credit has to go to him for working through it, putting his headspace and getting it the right way, and then the coaching staff for working with him and putting him in a position to succeed on the court, because he's been pretty consistent all darn year, and it's really, really good to see a kid like that put it together, because a lot of times it doesn't happen. So for him to put himself in a position to be able to be an NBA prospect is awesome to see. You look at his 12 for 16 from the floor. That's tremendous. Stat. And no, we're not getting into stats yet, but 11 rebounds, 0 of them offensive rebounds. So I found
you didn't need it. They were fairly efficient.
It's true. He just, why you don't have to get offensive rebounds when you make every shot you take. So that's how we can, if that's how we can go about things, I'm happy. But yeah, just a game where, I think when, Malik was off a little bit offensively, Khalil was there to kind of pick up, what we were missing there. And 34 minutes, played the most minutes on the team. And again, just a guy that, when he came in, we all saw, his raw attributes, his size, what he should be, and to see what he should be kind of come into or turn into what he is, it's awesome to see.
Yeah, and to ride that transition, you started to talk about NBA, and he'll obviously seeing that number possibly getting smaller and smaller on draft pick as he continues to have games like this. And another guy that obviously has NBA potential. And at the beginning of the season, if you'd asked me, I would have been probably about 50-50, more towards him being back. And as he continues to take incredible steps forward, we may not see him back next year. He may as well head into the NBA. And obviously that's Mackenzie. Just another great game, continues to take those good steps forward. And I think as well with Trey, I think it's another mentality thing where he just has found the comfort on the court. He is able to, as I've said in past shows, realize that he can play like he played in high school with these guys. Obviously, there's still some woes on the defensive end. There's still some times where he loses his man or miscommunicates, sags off, kind of takes defense off. But I think that's just falling on old bad habits that he's had, because in the past, like we've said, he didn't have to really defend because he was just heads over tails better than everyone else that was on the court when he played in high school and through his AAU days. And in AAU, anyone that's seen any of those games knows there's no defense at all in those. For the most part, don't at me for saying there's no defense. Obviously, some people play, but anyways, great game from him. 15 points, 6 for 12. His 3-point shot obviously was a great addition on the second half in that stretch, going 3 for 4 in the second half. 2 of them hit in a row fantastically. And as Joel even pointed out in the chat, that he hit some of those shots when the coaching staff went to that smaller lineup, when Renew was in foul trouble and allowed him to slide to the 4, which I think is a great lineup for IU to be able to do, not only because of how it speeds things up, but just it allows for more maturity and more veterans on there when you have Walker that can slide in there for Renew. But it's always obviously a tricky situation. But again, Mackenzie playing great, clicking on all cylinders right now, continues to be that a go-to for IU when he's in there. And when he has been off in this game, when he was sitting on the bench, you saw IU struggle some to find that other layer. But not only just is his shot coming along in his offense, but just his overall comfort level you can see. And I say that because at the beginning of the season, you would see him mostly just stand in the wing, stand in the corner and everything. And I feel like he's more active. He sees the game a lot better with that comfort level and is moving and rotating and cutting. There was a great play, I believe, in the second half or it might have been the first half, where Trey got in a little bit of trouble at about the free throw line trying to drive in, and Mackenzie curled right around him. You couldn't quite see from the cameras, but in almost a designed run play in football, got the handoff and was like, Trey, I got this, and was able to take 2 steps that Trey would not have been able to make, and made a great layup. So great to see him. Hopefully we get him back, but that's a discussion, obviously, for later. Martha, what are your thoughts on Mackenzie's game last night?
I think he kind of continues to shine here as of late. 15 points, 3 of 4 from 3. He hit back-to-back 3-pointers in the middle of the second half when we pushed our lead to 15, and he's just turning into the kind of the Mackenzie Mbako that we thought we were getting, right? I think a guy that you mentioned early in the season, you couldn't really keep him on the court, right? Defensively, he was lost. I mean, he was a liability defensively. And, he was, like you said, shoved in the corner like I used to do with Miller Kopp and just kind of pushed out of the way, right? And, wondering kind of what this was going to turn into, right? Because, I mean, here's a guy that was, all the stars in the world, top 10 recruit, whatever he was. I mean, the expectation is that you show up ready to contribute, right? At least in fans' minds, right? And when that doesn't happen, it's like, okay, what's going on here? And, again, I think some credit's got to go to him for working through it, right? He's had some off the court stuff. I mean, it's clearly the adjustment to the college game has been a little bit larger for him than we all thought, but worked through it. And now you're starting to see, defensively, is he perfect? No. Is he still getting lost? Some, yes, but he's leaps and bounds further ahead than where he was even, a month, 2 months ago. But now they're starting to actually run offensive sets for it. Stephen Bardo mentioned it last night. They ran an NBA set for him where he caught the ball up top and drove in and put up a little bit of put up a floater, excuse me. But yeah, he's much more present. He's much more, involved both defensively, offensively. They're running sets for him. He's looking for his shot. He looks a lot smoother out there. So it's nice to see. It's good to see. And when you start looking, forward a little bit and how this team may evolve both in the short term and long term, he's a guy that you hope can be a part of that now. And that's a far cry from where we were a couple months ago.
Yeah. And then everyone's clicking at the right time. And someone that necessarily didn't click last night was Xavier Johnson. I continue to like him coming off the bench. I hope the coaching staff stays with that. Obviously, we see Gabe Cupps has struggled a little bit as of recent, and his minutes have gone down because X being back. But I don't want to see him go out of the starting lineup in place for X, because I like that position for him coming and being that energy off the bench for IU. And again, he didn't have the greatest production on a personal level, but to me, again, as I said earlier, for him, it's how he affects those around him. And mostly it's Trey Galloway. He kind of allows Trey moments of rest still on the court to create for IU. X will create things in the offense, and Trey can kind of step back and allow that to happen. And then as well, it's just X's great on the ball defense is what's great to have. If there is going to be, just because he's obviously been through it with injuries and everything, and if we need to find a baseline for X and a baseline obviously for our expectations of Xavier Johnson, this is what it can be. And I think this is what it needs to be. Just a guy that can spell Trey Galloway, let him still keep cooking and continue this momentum that he has, and be that guy that kind of helps run the offense when Trey needs a little breather while he's on there. We don't have to have, but that's not saying that he can't have games like we want him to have, like he did last game. He could still go off, and those can be the lucky happenstances that happen, the lucky things that happen, and not the things that we rely on. We don't need to push that pressure that we rely on him to be at that next level again. It can only be a positive if he does, and he can just do these other things for IU. And the caveat to that is that we have to have X that stays on that razor thin line, because we do need the edge that X gives. We do need that emotion. We do need that fight, but we don't need X in the way that we've seen, where he's getting flagrants, where he's doing the stuff that he doesn't, where he gets frustrated on a play and then on the other end commits a foul because of it. But if we can get X like we had last night as the bottom baseline and just positives from there, these are some great games to contribute the rest of this season. Martha, your kind of thoughts? Am I on track with that? Does that make sense to you? I hope that works.
It's hard to. I mean, you've really got to contain your expectations with X when you consider how little he's been on the court. Not only this,
we got to say as many X words as we can when we're saying it too.
Right.
Expectations of X,
lower the expectations but the reality is, like, when you compare the time he's had on the court the last two seasons to the rest of the team, it's limited, right? And it's hard to get consistent. It's hard to get consistent when your live action against opponents has been so limited, right? I mean, he's had, 2 or 3 preseasons this year where he's gotten hurt. He's played a few games, gotten hurt again. So it's just hard to get into rhythm, especially when you consider one of the injuries was to his foot. I mean, it's just tough. So I think to ask a ton from him, and it's exactly what you said. It's a position that we've struggled at all season long, right? So he's got to be a guy that, through all the experience that he's had across his 5 or 6 years, put all that together and be that steady presence that we need when he's in there, right? Not force. He had a couple. You may have mentioned it. He had a couple passes there in the first half. It's like, that's not anything we need right there. It's like you need to be the level presence that kind of keeps things aligned, right? You don't need to be the one throwing the ball away. We do enough of that when you're not on the court. So
yes, I thought Woodson might throw his chair at him at that point with that behind the back pass.
At the TV, it's like, what? It's just so, it's frustrating. But he kind of put it. Excuse me. He kind of put it together. And if we want any hope of like carrying this through Michigan State and getting a win or two at the Big Ten tournament, it's gonna. You remember 2 years ago when we were kind of a bubble team and Trace and X put the team on their backs, and he's a big part of that, right? They had the pick and roll going, but he was putting up 20 points a game. So, it's going to have to kind of be one of. I don't know that we'll ever get that stat line out of X this year, but he's a guy that's going to have to play with that kind of presence and just be that steady force that kind of helps the offense flow and look for his shot offensively. But he's going to have to put the team on his back a little bit if we want to go into these next 2 or 3 games and kind of expect to win. So yeah, I think obviously last night was fine. I think the game started off rough for him. He was a good presence in the second half, but he needs to be that moving forward as well.
Yeah, and someone that's interesting to talk about in this game is Malik Renew. Didn't get as many minutes in this game. Just finished with 18 minutes. Was in foul trouble for most of the first half and sat just 8 points, 3 for 6 from the field. Did make his 2 free throws, so that was good to see. But in all honesty, I will then applaud the coaching staff in this sense that they didn't feel like they needed to ram him down our throats. Obviously, since IU was ahead for most of the game and controlling things without him on, it allowed IU to rest him and get kind of a game off, so to say, for him to have him for coming up games and be more spelled in this situation. But because of that, it allowed IU to click more and do stuff that we have been wanting to see them do, going with those smaller lineups. And it also allowed the more veteran lineup. When IU was kind of struggling with turnovers and other situations, you saw that veteran lineup go in. And I mean that by having Walker and Leal and X all on the same floor together, or any of those combinations of those two, along with, instead of X, Trey. Having that maturity level in there definitely played dividends for IU. And where in the past, earlier on this season, that kind of unit that's gone in like that has been the full bench lineup with a lot younger guys in situations. But it just shows what more experience can do. So while, again, it was a little bit of a struggle for Malik, it was a game that we didn't necessarily need Malik to be that contributor and everything. And I applaud the coaching staff, since him and Ware are clearly 2 of our best players, not feeling obligated to have them in together for long stretches was a good thing for IU in this game. Your kind of thoughts on Malik's game?
He's been playing with what seems to be, and again, maybe it was just the unsettled nature of kind of how things were over the course of the last month, but just he's obviously an emotional kid, always has been. I think it's kind of one of his, at times it can be his, one of his really strong strengths. At times he can be a little too emotional, and he's been playing, I think, at times a little too emotional over the last few weeks, and maybe a little bit last night. Obviously his foul trouble excluded, but he hasn't been the offensive force, and some of it's been because of foul trouble, right? Getting 2 quick fouls and kind of reverting to bad habits that he had early last season, right? I think, when you think about where he is in the sense of his headspace, and he's just, I think he was a lot more aware to start the season, while he was on the court, and not putting himself in position to get those fouls, and just those bad habits kind of crept in. And, again, there was a lot of noise, right? So we could blame some of that on that, but and hoping to see maybe a little bit, only 18 minutes on the floor last night. He's a guy that you want to have up in that 30 range, in my opinion. So he's putting himself in a position to lose court time because of those silly fouls. And I think some of it's a little bit mental, but now maybe getting through last night as we hit the home stretch really of the season here, with one more home game and then the Big Ten tournament, a guy that can really finish strong, put himself in a position to finish strong. I thought last night when he was out there, he was okay. He just wasn't out there enough. And that was the frustration, just putting himself in a position. Three fouls, 3 turnovers. I think the expectation is for him to be on the court a little bit more. But I thought Khalil picked him up. I thought, that's to have those 2 options. Usually they're out there together. But I thought what Malik couldn't provide last night, Khalil was there. And, Malik's had a couple games like that here lately. So hopefully we can move forward and he's back on the court like he should be, closer to that 30-minute mark.
Yep. And last kind of players to talk about, a kind of rumored talking about them. We'll kind of lump the 2 guys together and Anthony and the Anthonys. This will be the Anthony portion of the show. Sending good vibes to Anthony W., Anthony Walker. Hopefully he's doing a lot better. Was a little scary when a player drops, kind of lands awkwardly on his knee and it twists a little bit and then just kind of holds that knee and does not want to put any weight on it when he's walking off the bench. But at least good to see when he came back to the bench and shared that great moment that the cameras caught. Good job on the Big Ten crew for catching that moment after Ware hit one of his threes, kind of giving a three motion towards Walker, and Walker kind of giving it back and everything, smiling as he does. And kid's always been in and had a great headspace and always kind of been the positive, ever so non-failing positive guy on the team. But hopefully he gets back and does a lot better. And then Anthony Leal as well. I think both of those guys are the type of guys that just create plays and calming factors for the players when they're in there. Like I said earlier, they were ones that kind of righted the ship when things were going bad. There was one moment, I think, in the second half as well, where things got a little back and forth, kind of ugly for both teams. And then a timeout was called. And right before the cameras panned away, I saw Anthony Leal out there putting his hands up, like telling the guys, like, calm down, let's take it easy and everything like that. So he's really such a great leader when he's out there for this team. Obviously not contributing huge from a point standpoint, but just doing all those other things for IU. He finished the game with 4 assists. So he was third on Indiana's roster in assists, just behind, obviously, the monster Trey Galloway in assists and Xavier Johnson with 4 assists, 3 rebounds. He continues to crash the glass and do what he does, 2 assists. So again, love that he's found in this season some playing time. Love what he's contributed to this team and what he's done for his fellow Indiana buddy Trey Galloway, but just what the Anthonys have done for this team as far as bringing that experience cannot be overstated for this otherwise relatively inexperienced team. Your thought on the Anthonys?
If a month and a half ago, if we would have talked about Anthony Leal playing 20 plus minutes a game, I think we would have been scratching our head on what happened. And I think what happened is, you look at the lack of progress, the lack of step taken by the 2 sophomores, Caleb Banks and CJ Gunn. They played a combined 2 minutes last night, and that's not uncommon here this season, right? Caleb hasn't been sniffing the court lately. So it's like, who steps up? And, you bring a guy in, like Anthony Walker, because of his experience. This is his, fourth or fifth year, and a lot of good experience with Miami. Anthony, we know his basketball background growing up in Indiana and what, Mr. Basketball and what his skill set and knowledge of the game is. So, I think it's proven to be really efficient to have those 2 guys on the court with their experience, with their basketball knowledge and intel. I think they're just making heady plays. They're providing leadership when we need it. You look at you mentioned the assists, combined 9 assists between the 2 of them. That's perimeter player production. And it's been an area where we've struggled this season. So they're coming in and they're playing good basketball. They're not doing, they're not trying to do more of what's, more than what's been asked of them. They're playing within themselves. They're not, they're not a bunch of turnovers. Yeah, Anthony had four turnovers. Walker. Specify which Anthony I'm talking about. That Anthony Walker had 4 turnovers, but just guys that are just providing that leadership, that consistency, that level-headed play that really we've needed, especially when we talk about guys on the court that are playing with emotion and stuff like that. So it was good to see. I think those guys had a really solid combined game. So hope Anthony's okay. You never like to see. I was reminded of seems like the barn is known for those non-contact knee injuries. I remember Robbie Hummel's senior year when Purdue was really, really strong and he tore his ACL up there. But it just seems like a place, and I don't know if it's just it's that goofy court and I know it has nothing to do with it, but that elevated
can't stand that elevated court.
It's just a place you want to go in, get out of, and hope that everything turns out okay. But yeah, just hope that he's okay, and hopefully it's just one of those things where he stretched it out a little bit, and it's nothing that's, internal tore up. So we'll get news on that, I'm sure, soon. But really good combined game from the Anthonys.
Yeah. With Walker, hopefully it is. And at least, obviously, I'm no medical professional. I'm no Dr. Rink or Tim Garl, but it's obviously good news when you see a player come back and sit on the bench again. And not only that, but come back and that knee that they landed awkwardly on isn't all wrapped up, isn't in a huge brace, isn't sitting with a bunch of ice on it and everything. Now, he may have been holding an ice pack on it in between, but at least we didn't see him all mummified coming back to the bench. So hopefully that it is good signs moving forward, because we do need some minutes out of him. He is a great force in both cutting to the basket and just breaking up as well zone defenses. He's been really good in the season. So positive vibes towards that guy and everything. Let's move on to kind of look at some stats in this game. Some great ones, obviously, to initially look at as 19 fast break points for IU. Again, I think that's up hugely. I haven't delved deep to see what IU's average it on the season as far as that stat goes, but that's obviously way up there. Probably the best that we've been, and I contribute that to having X back and a lot of the speed he brings to our offense. Talked about it earlier, but the 14 assists on 14 made baskets in the first half, amazing. 28 assists overall on 30 made baskets for IU. That's incredible. Thank goodness we're finding that now and doing that. Let's keep that going and staying in that kind of relative zone. 9 turnovers to 20 assists for the guards of IU. That's Xavier Johnson, Trey Galloway, and Anthony Leal, contributing those 3 together. So great thing you're seeing there. And if you want to just be nitpicky and look at the percentage, not look at the attempts, 62% from 3 for IU. Obviously, small sample size on 5 for 8, but an impressive, again, just showing from those assists, 54% from the field. So IU clicking on a lot of cylinders. Any stats that stick out to you, Martha?
Well, obviously we've talked a lot about the number of assists, and I think, an area where we've really struggled this season. So just to see and I think, I've seen some chatter on it in the comment section over there, but just the way the team is just really gelling here a little bit as of late, sharing the basketball. I mean, it's in areas that we've really kind of struggled. Yeah, we didn't take a lot of threes last night, but going 5 for 8 is strong, like you said, and decent percentage from the free throw line as well. And I think it's you look at that and combine it with the 3-game win streak now and the fact that we're sharing the basketball at a better rate. I think it all speaks to kind of, coming together a little bit. And obviously I hate that it's on the heels of that 4-game stretch. We won a couple of those games. All of a sudden we're talking about, we're still pretty far away from any sort of bubble, but we're right there in the conversation if we don't go through that stretch where we play bad against Penn State at home and bad against Northwestern at home. I mean, and it seems like we're always talking about the what if games, tired being in that position. But, if we're playing like we have been lately against those teams during those games, I think we're in a better position right now. But it's nice to see, right? I mean, it's, hopefully we can just continue to play well here down the stretch. It's been a really, really frustrating season, right, for a lot of different reasons. So it's nice to be here, with 2 to 3 games left and be playing some good basketball. I think probably playing our best basketball this season. So it's good to see. And the hope is that we can just kind of continue here down the stretch.
Yep. And moving on, obviously IU has senior night coming up against Michigan State on Sunday at 4:30. And a little bit of soapbox plea. Obviously, right now, fan base is very split, and some people talk about boycotting things and everything like that to send messages and everything. And I plead to not do that. This is senior night. This is a night for the seniors. This is for them. We don't know exactly who all is going to step up there. We know at least Xavier Johnson and Walker will probably be up there. Maybe Leal might be as well. Trey could as well, but Trey might be back. Both those guys still have one more year if they decide to use it. So don't use this as the excuse to use your lack of attendance to send a message. Be there for these players. Be there for the guys that have been out there supporting it. No matter what you think of the coaching staff, the people on the side. And if it is that you can't stomach it yourself and you can't see yourself going, there's better ways that you can use your ticket. There's other things you can do. And if you are still a happy person and just can't find yourself able to go to the game on Sunday, there's something very good you can do with those tickets. And Martha is going to tell you about that.
That's an incredible segue, Chad. Hats off to you. Love that. I thank you for that. And thank you for your consistent efforts to allow me to talk about the project. It's been a really solid year for the project, both on the women's and men's side. We sent over 200 individuals to the women's game last weekend. Men's tickets continue to roll in strong, and we're continuing to find good homes. But yeah, like Chad said, if you're thinking about not attending the game on Sunday for whatever reason, and you already have tickets, we can help you find a good home for them. And you can do that by visiting HoosierTicketProject.org/donate. I'll tell you how you can donate your tickets. If you've got somebody that you know tickets could go to, that's a deserving individual, you can nominate them there as under the request tab. So yeah, we'll be happy to help you find good homes for the tickets you may not want to use for whatever the reason may be. So if that's something you'd like to do or learn more about the project, you can visit our website at HoosierTicketProject.org. Thanks, Chad.
That's great. And then I'm going to kick it back one last time. Give me your closing thoughts on this game.
Yeah, I think, it's obviously, and not to get too deep into the noise outside of what's been happening on the court, because there's been a lot of it, right? Whether it's been through the media, through I think that there's obviously, when you've got a fan base as large as Indiana's, there's always going to be, and to each their own, right? This is my opinion, right? But I think there's always going to be a segment of it that's not very rational and go about things kind of in a way that doesn't serve a whole lot of good. And whether that's petitions or boycotts or, it's usually those groups that seem to be the loudest and get the most noise. I think most of us are in that segment that are we expect more out of the program. We want more out of the program, but I think our way of we're always going to support the program, right? And I think that's the best thing you can do now. I think the administration knows the importance of the basketball program. And I mean, we could sit here and debate whether a move should be made at the head coaching position until we were red or blue in the face, right? But I think the best thing we can do is continue to support these guys and hope that they get it right. You've got to be proud of how kind of the play on the court. I mean, they've had every excuse, every reason to kind of fold for the year, right? I mean, we've heard the discourse that, half the team's already in the transfer portal or we're going to, these guys are going to go pro. These guys are going to look for different programs. Half the roster is going to go, but so for all of that, if any of that happens to be true or, any of it happens to be false, I'm sure the truth's somewhere in the middle, right? But all that noise, right, to continue to go out on the court and put together good games here, the last three contests, it's really good to see. And the hope is that, we've got that minimum 2 more games and let's go out and get a couple wins and put ourselves in a position to have a third game. So that's all you can ask. And I think the rest will kind of take care of itself.
Yep. I'm so happy that my Indiana cup, right, my coffee mug here was getting pretty empty on optimism of this team. And these last couple games have filled it up a little bit more. And I'm trying not to be that guy that says, man, if we had this then, if we had this there, that's in the past. And right now it's a good place to be in. Despite those other things, put those other things aside, put those off-court things aside, and look what's happening on the court with IU basketball, and look at what these players are giving. And despite all that noise, they're able to shut that off. And in a world of social media that is so very vocal and gives the very emotional, the highest of platforms to express those emotions, that these players are able to go out there and still fight and go out there and play and find that next level and play together and gel. And it's great to see it. And it makes it so much more enjoyable to be here with you guys the mornings after to talk about it than have to drag myself down here to my office and scrum through another loss. So happy to be where we are. Happy to see this continue and at least finish some things on a high note. What date that season finishes is still obviously up in the air. And hopefully it stays a few more games. Hopefully we can stretch it out just a little bit more for the players that won't be able to don a college basketball jersey again. Let's play hard for them. Let's cheer hard for them. Let's be there for them as well, because as we've seen, at least towards the end, they've put it out there for us. So that's going to do it for this edition of Hoosier Morning After. Thank you for being here with us. Great participation in the chat, guys, today. Thank you for keeping it very civil and everything when it could have been a little bit different. Thank you for those that I see watching live, a lot more live viewers than we've had recently. So that's great to see. Thank you for being there with us. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, please. Those of you on Twitter, you can follow Martha and I. My Twitter handle's at General Chadwick. Martha is at the Mop Lady. Thank you for Bob Thompson for producing the theme song you hear on this show. It's been a great one. Thank you, guys. We'll be back again the morning after the next show. Until then, guys, go out there. Have yourself a wonderful day.
And as always, go Hoosiers.
Was that Renew spot a new touch?